I took the night shift at Walmart because I needed something steady, nothing dramatic. Rent was due, the car needed work, and I was tired of bouncing around from job to job. It wasn't my first choice, but it was a paycheck. The hours were quiet, which I liked. Less people, less noise, less bullshit. Just me, a few coworkers, and endless aisles of shelves to restock. At first it was simple. Clock in at 10 p.m. Clock out at 6 a.m. Clean up, organize, unload the truck. Repeat. It felt like I could turn my brain off and let my body go on autopilot. Then after my first week, the manager handed me a laminated sheet during our shift briefing. He said every night shift employee had to read it and follow what was on it. That was the only time I ever saw him act serious. The sheet was titled Night Operations Protocol. Store hashtag 1372. Underneath that, in smaller letters, it said failure to follow the rules may result in termination. I thought it was some corporate policy thing like OSHA compliance or maybe pandemic rules. But once I read the list, I knew it wasn't normal. There were 9 rules. 1. Do not acknowledge the man in aisle 9 after 3:33 a.m. 2. If the intercom turns on by itself, stop what you're doing and stand still until it turns off. 3. If you hear your name whispered from the stockroom, do not respond. It is not your coworker. 4. The toy section must be avoided between 2:13 a.m. and 2:34 a.m. Do not restock there. Do not clean there. Do not pass through. 5. If a customer enters the store after midnight and their feet do not make a sound when they walk, notify Bill immediately. 6. Never look directly at the security monitors between 4 o'clock and 4:17 a.m. 7. If the lights flicker exactly 3 times, return to the break room and stay there until they stop. Do not look out the windows. 8. You may hear knocking from inside the refrigerators. Do not open them. 9. If you see yourself on aisle 5, leave the store immediately. Do not speak to it. Do not let it see you. Do not return until next shift. At first I thought it was a joke, some dumb tradition passed around to mess with new hires. But no one laughed when I looked up from the paper. Bill just said you'll understand eventually. I still remember the way he said it, like he wasn't trying to scare me, like he was just tired of explaining it. I didn't take it seriously that first night. I read the rules again, folded them up, and stuck them in my back pocket. Figured it was something people made up during slow shifts to pass the time. You hear enough stories online about haunted buildings or strange Walmart customers. It just blends together. But that same night, right around 3:30, I was stocking laundry detergent near aisle 9. The store was silent except for the low hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional squeak of my cart. I wasn't even thinking about the list until I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. There was a man at the end of the aisle. He stood completely still facing the shelves like he was reading a label. He didn't have a cart, no basket. He just stood there with his hands at his sides. Something about his posture felt off, too stiff, too staged. I froze. The clock on my scanner read 3:33 a.m. Rule 1 flashed in my head like a warning light. I glanced again. He hadn't moved. I kept my eyes on my scanner, pretending to check inventory. I stayed quiet. I didn't look directly at him. After about a minute, I turned my cart around and left the aisle. I didn't tell anyone. I figured maybe it was a regular customer, someone weird, maybe a squatter who slipped in unnoticed. But deep down, I think I knew. The next night, nothing happened, no strange sounds, no ghostly customers. I started to think maybe I had imagined the guy. Lack of sleep, late night paranoia. Your mind can mess with you when you're surrounded by buzzing lights and silence. But then came the third night. I was cleaning up broken glass in the frozen section. A jar of pickles had fallen off the top shelf somehow. No idea how. No one had been near it. As I was sweeping, I heard the intercom crackle. Not a page, no words, just the sound of static. It came on all by itself. My heart started pounding. I remembered Rule 2. I dropped the broom and froze. The static continued for maybe 15 seconds. Then it cut out. Silence again. I picked up the broom, finished cleaning, and tried not to think about it. But from that point on, I followed the rules. Every one of them. Not because I believed them, but because I didn't want to find out what happened if I didn't. The rest of the team didn't talk about the rules much. They acted like they didn't exist. But I caught people glancing at clocks when the time got close to the windows flickering. I saw a guy named Kyle straight up drop a box of cereal and leave the toy section once without explanation. No one questioned it. No one laughed. It started feeling like I was part of some underground ritual. A quiet cult of people just trying to get through the night. The thing that really broke me, though, happened 2 weeks ago. I had just finished my break and was heading back to the floor. It was around 2:10 a.m. I passed by the toy section without thinking. I wasn't inside it, just near it. And then I heard it. Laughter. High-pitched like a child's, but not right. It was too slow, drawn out. Like someone mimicking the sound of a laugh without understanding it. I stopped in my tracks. My heart dropped. The clock above the pharmacy read 2:13 a.m. Rule 4. I backed away fast. The laughter continued, now joined by the sound of a toy being activated. Something mechanical, repeating a phrase over and over in a cheerful tone that turned sickening in the silence. Let's be friends forever. Let's be friends forever. It played again and again. I went back to the break room and stayed there until 2:35. After that night, I kept my phone on me at all times. I started writing down the times, the sounds, everything. I had to keep track, even if it made me look crazy. I started noticing new things too, things that weren't on the list. Sometimes the air would suddenly feel thick like walking through water. The smell of copper would fill the electronics aisle for no reason. I saw a pallet jack move on its own once, just slide across the floor like someone was pushing it. Only there was no one there. I started wondering about the rules that weren't written down. Why only 9? Why those specific ones? I tried asking Bill about it once during lunch. He looked at me for a long time, like he was deciding whether to say something. Then he just said, "Don't try to figure it out. Just do your job." So I did. But then last night everything changed. I got in around 9:45 p.m., early as usual. I was halfway through the first hour when I noticed someone I didn't recognize working near the bakery. A tall guy, looked maybe mid-30s, lots of tattoos. I figured he was new. He didn't have a name badge, no vest, just jeans and a black shirt. He was stacking loaves of bread like he'd done it 100 times before. I didn't say anything, just nodded and kept walking. Later, around 12:15 a.m., I saw him again. This time in the cleaning supplies aisle. Same position, stacking things perfectly. No cart, no boxes, just standing there placing bottles on shelves that were already full. Something felt wrong. I asked one of the other workers, Sarah, if we had any new hires. She said no. That's when I went to the cameras. I'm not supposed to check them, but I know the code. I wanted to see when this guy arrived. I scrubbed through the footage. Nothing. He didn't come in the front, didn't walk past any of the cameras. He just appeared. That was at 12:42 a.m. At 1:03 a.m., the intercom crackled. I froze, static again. No one touched the mic. Everyone stopped moving. When it ended, I ran back to the cameras and checked aisle 5. And there he was, looking straight up at the ceiling camera. But his face looked like mine. Not just a resemblance, it was my face. Same beard, same jacket, same eyes, only it wasn't me. Rule 9. I bolted, I left everything. Walked straight out the emergency exit and drove home without even clocking out. I didn't sleep. I haven't slept since. Now I don't know what to do. My next shift is tonight. I'm scheduled to be there in 4 hours. My phone keeps buzzing. Missed calls, texts from Bill. Something about urgent scheduling issues. I don't want to go back, but I don't think that matters anymore, because just now I got a notification from the Walmart app. Order ready for pickup. Placed by me. Picked up 5 minutes ago from store #1372. I didn't place anything, and I'm not at the store, but someone with my name, my account, and my face just signed for it. So tell me, what happens when he clocks in tonight? Because I sure as hell won't be there. After that app notification popped up, the one saying I'd picked up an order I never placed, I shut my phone off. just held the power button down until the screen went black. But that didn't stop it. When I looked outside, my car was gone. I live in a crummy duplex with no garage, so the lot outside my window is visible from the couch. I hadn't heard the engine. No door slam. No alarm chirp. Just gone. Vanished. At first I thought someone had stolen it, but when I checked the security cam app from my front porch, the playback just showed me walking to the car at 1:07 a.m., getting in, driving away. I hadn't left the house. I know that for a fact because I've been watching old sitcoms on mute while chain smoking in the kitchen. My lighter was still warm when I saw the footage. It was me in the video, but not. The same face, same clothes, but he moved differently. Smoother, too smooth. Like his joints didn't quite line up the way they should. I watched myself disappear down the road and realized I wasn't alone anymore. The Walmart rules never mentioned anything about what happened off the property, but I guess they didn't need to. Once you see yourself in aisle 5, the store isn't the only place they can reach you. I spent the next 2 days indoors, locked every window, turned off the lights, even unplugged the TV because every time I powered it on it would flip to the security feed for store #1372. No sound, just black and white footage of empty aisles. Except sometimes they weren't empty. Sometimes I'd see myself stocking cereal, wiping down registers, smiling. That part got to me more than anything, the smile. Not because it looked fake, but because it didn't. It looked natural, comfortable, like he was happy there, like he belonged. I tried calling Walmart HR, tried quitting over the phone, but no one picked up. The line would connect, then go dead. After the 5th attempt, I got a voicemail, not one I left. It was my voice, but I don't remember recording it. It just said, "Hey, I'm good to cover that shift, I'll be there early." Click. That was it. At 3:33 a.m. on the 3rd day, my doorbell rang. I didn't move, just stood in the kitchen holding a knife I'd pulled from the drawer like that would do anything. The doorbell rang again, then it stopped. When I finally looked through the peephole, no one was there, but taped to the door was a new laminated sheet, same kind they use for training at the store. This one was titled Home Operations Protocol. Level 2 clearance required, and beneath that in all lowercase, just like the first list. 1. If someone calls your name from outside between 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock a.m., do not answer even if it sounds like family, especially if it does too. If your reflection continues moving after you stop, turn off all lights and cover mirrors with cloth, leave them covered for 72 hours. 3. Do not answer the door between 3:29 and 3:34 a.m. Ignore knocking doorbells or crying, do not investigate. 4. If you wake up and the walls are breathing, go back to sleep, do not acknowledge it. 5. Unplug your TV between 2 o'clock and 2:45 a.m. If it turns on anyway, leave the house immediately and walk in a straight line until sunrise. 6. Your doppelganger is allowed 1 entry attempt. If it fails, it will return to the store. If it succeeds, you won't know. 7. If you see yourself outside past midnight, do not let it see you. 8. If you find yourself inside the store without remembering how you got there, do not panic, follow the original 9 rules until someone lets you out. 9. If none of these apply and you still feel watched, it's because you are. That last one hit different. I didn't know what level 2 clearance meant or how any of this found its way to my door, but I finally understood why Bill never said much. He probably had a list of his own. I sat on my couch for what felt like hours trying to convince myself I was just losing it. Sleep deprived, paranoid. Maybe I'd fallen asleep in front of the TV and dreamed it all. But the list was real, laminated, heavy, still in my hand. I opened the beer and drank it without tasting it. I had to do something, anything, so I packed a bag, some clothes, my passport, old birthday cash, and decided I'd drive to another town. Maybe crash at a cheap motel until I figured things out. Only problem was my car never came back. I called a buddy of mine from high school, Darren. We hadn't talked in a while, but he lived 20 minutes out and owed me a favor. He said he'd be by in an hour. He showed up 43 minutes later, but when I opened the door, it wasn't Darren. It was me, smiling, still wearing that Walmart name tag. I slammed the door and locked the deadbolt. There was no sound, no footsteps, no knock. He just stood there smiling, holding a set of car keys I recognized as my own. And then he turned and walked away. I waited 10 minutes before I peeped outside. Nothing, but parked at the curb was my car. Exactly where it should have been. I didn't take it. I couldn't. I just went back inside, closed the curtains, and sat on the floor for hours. That night, the rules changed again. This time they weren't printed. They were whispered. I was lying in bed, exhausted but wide awake, when I heard my name from the kitchen. Not shouted, not spoken, whispered, like someone was sitting in the dark close to the floor mouth, right against the linoleum. I held my breath. It said it again. The same tone I remember from Rule 3: if you hear your name whispered from the stockroom, do not respond. It is not your coworker. But this wasn't the stockroom. This was my kitchen. I buried my head under the pillow and stayed that way until morning. Eventually, it stopped. When I got up, I checked the kitchen. Nothing out of place, except for one thing, my name tag, the one from work. It was on the floor, right where the voice had come from. But I hadn't brought it home. I'd left it in my locker 3 nights ago. I don't know how much longer I can do this. I haven't slept more than a few hours in days. Every time I close my eyes, I dream of Walmart. Aisles going on forever. Lights flickering overhead. My face on every screen. Last night I saw a version of myself in the mirror brushing his teeth before I did. He looked at me and smiled. I didn't brush my teeth after that. Tonight, there's a shift scheduled. According to the work app, I'm clocked in. It says I've been working for the last 6 hours. I haven't left my house, so someone else is doing the job. And I think they're better at it than me. He never complains. He smiles at customers. He follows the rules. But the thing that scares me most, I don't think he is the copy anymore. I think I am. Because this morning, when I looked in the mirror, I smiled back. And it didn't feel like me. It felt like him. I don't think there's any use running anymore, because wherever I go, it's already there. Last night, I decided to test it. I threw the laminated sheets into the trash, packed up, and drove my car straight out of town. It felt strange driving it again, since the last time I saw someone else using it, but the keys turned and the engine started like nothing was wrong. I drove until the Walmart app on my phone buzzed. It showed me clocking in at 10:00 p.m. again, even though I was still on the highway 2 counties over. That's when I realized no matter where I go, I'm always clocked in now. I pulled into a motel with peeling paint and buzzing neon, turned off my phone, and tried to sleep, but the TV in the room powered itself on even though it wasn't plugged in. It showed live footage of me working Register 3 at store #1372. I watched myself scan groceries for customers that didn't even have faces, just smooth blank heads that nodded politely and pushed carts with squeaking wheels. I ripped the cord out of the wall, but the screen stayed on until 2:45 am exactly. After that, it went black, but the reflection in the glass was still smiling at me even when I wasn't. The next morning, when I looked outside the motel lot, I saw my car parked in 2 spaces. One car was mine with mud on the fender from the long drive. The other was spotless and perfectly clean, same license plate, same dent in the bumper. And when I leaned closer to the window, I saw myself inside the clean one, sitting in the driver's seat staring straight up at me, smiling. I checked out of the motel without looking back and called Bill. I don't know why. Maybe part of me thought he had answers. He picked up on the first ring and said only one thing: "You should have kept working." And then he hung up. Later that night, I went to take a shower, and when the mirror fogged, I saw a message written across it in the condensation: 9 more rules, level 3 clearance. I wiped it off before I could read the rest, but when I stepped out of the shower, the words were back, this time scratched into the glass itself, deep grooves that hadn't been there before. The first one said, "If you ever meet your devil face to face, you must let it take your place willingly or both of you will disappear." The second said, "If you refuse to go back to the store, it will bring the store to you." I stopped reading after that because my chest felt tight, and I didn't want to see the rest. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I was back in aisle 5, the shelves stretching longer and longer until they didn't make sense. And at the far end, I could see myself waving for me to come closer. When I woke up, it was daylight, but my phone said I had worked an 8-hour shift, and even listed tasks completed under my name: unloading pallets, zoning grocery, sweeping the floor. I scrolled through the log, and each note was written like someone who knew my handwriting perfectly. It even had little shorthand notes I always used, like T/T for trash taken out. I stared at it for a long time and felt sick, because it wasn't just copying my face anymore. It was copying everything about me. That evening I went to take out the trash and froze because the hallway outside my door didn't look like the hallway. It looked like the seasonal aisle at the store, filled with leftover Easter candy and discount 4th of July decorations. I blinked and it was normal again, but the bag of trash I was holding had been replaced with a roll of yellow clearance stickers. I threw them in the dumpster and slammed the door. Later that night, I heard the intercom static again, but this time it came from inside my bedroom, a speaker hidden somewhere in the walls. I stood frozen until it cut out. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, but when I checked my phone later, it said intercom check complete logged at 1:14 a.m., which meant it was real enough to count. I tried calling Darren again, but the voice that answered wasn't his, it was mine. I said hello, and then I heard my own voice say, "Hey, I'm already outside, come let me in." I dropped the phone and didn't pick it back up. I sat in the dark until sunrise listening for footsteps. I thought maybe it would stop if I left town completely, so I packed another bag and drove until I hit the state line. The sky was gray and heavy, but I felt lighter the farther I went, like maybe I could outrun it. But when I pulled into a gas station to fill up, I realized the shelves inside the store looked too familiar. Exact same arrangement, chips on the left, drinks cooler in the back, candy near the counter. I thought it was coincidence until I saw aisle numbers hanging from the ceiling, little plastic signs that shouldn't have been there, 1 through 20, just like the store back home. I ran back to my car and didn't look at the cashier, because I knew if I did, I'd see my own face smiling back. I drove home shaking, realizing it didn't matter where I went, the store was bleeding through everywhere now. When I got back to my apartment, the lights were already on, and I could see movement in the kitchen. I thought someone broke in, but when I pushed the door open, I saw myself standing at the counter making coffee. He looked up at me and smiled, and for a moment, I almost said something, almost asked what he wanted. But Rule 9 came back to me clear as day: do not speak to it, do not let it see you. So I closed the door as quietly as I could and ran back to my car. I sat there for hours until the lights went off inside. Now I'm writing this in a notebook, because every time I type on my laptop, the words change when I look away. I'll write "I want to leave," but when I look back, the screen says "I want to stay." I'll write "help me," and it changes to "hire me." The more I fight it, the more it pulls me in. I haven't eaten in 2 days because everything in my fridge has Walmart price tags on it now, and I can't tell if it's food or just packaging. My neighbors don't look at me anymore. They just smile the same stiff smile and push shopping carts up and down the hall. I think the replacement isn't waiting anymore. I think it already happened. And I'm just the last piece of me that hasn't accepted it. The rules keep changing and the laminated sheets keep appearing. I stopped reading them because they only tell me things I don't want to know. Things like what happens after you're fully replaced. What happens after you start smiling without meaning to. I'm scared that's already started because sometimes when I catch my reflection in the window, I see him waving, and worse, sometimes I wave back.